It just happened exactly as we predicted. Hey, everybody, you're watching Bull, Boom, Bear, Bust, back with another dose of economic reality. Yes, another prediction came true. We continue to be 100% correct here on this channel, maybe 99.9% correct because a few months ago I got the date wrong. But other than that, we've been nailing it to the wall here, folks. U.S. economy grew at a blistering pace, 3.3% in the fourth quarter.
So, Andrew, this report just dropping, showing 3.3% growth in the fourth quarter. Wall Street was projecting something like 2%, so far exceeding expectations here.
While inflation pulled back. Let's focus on the GDP number, 3.3%. We said right here, all they would have to do is allow people to go further and further into debt to keep this GDP number, that stands for gross domestic product, to keep that number inflated, to keep it elevated. And that's what's used to gauge the economy. So as long as they can keep people going further into debt, they can keep this economy looking like it's growing on paper. Now, in the background, people are getting buried under more and more and more debt. So there's the problem. Also, you have the cost of living. When people have a lot of borrowed money to spend, the cost of living remains elevated. Now, of course, the other part of the headline is they're saying that inflation came down. Well, the cost of living didn't come down. Inflation slowed, meaning prices are going up still, just at a slower pace than they were previously. But that's not really good news when you look at the overall picture. We need a lower cost of living, but that's not going to happen in this environment. So people predicting a crash, well, there's going to be a crash. It's going to be a crash in your purchasing power. It's going to be a crash in the dollars, what the dollar can buy you, and it's going to become less and less and less. And of course, that helps these numbers that are looked at to gauge the economy, because when things cost more and people spend more, then that gets chalked up as economic growth. The more debt you take on, the more you spend, the better the GDP is going to look. So this number is no surprise, but yet there are some headlines out there acting like this was a big shock, a big surprise. And I wouldn't be surprised if next quarter, when we get the numbers, if it rises again. Take a look at the headline here out of ABC. U.S. economy grew at surprisingly strong 3.3% pace last quarter, pointing to continued resilience. There's that word again, resilience. So if consumers were really resilient, would we have to keep on going further and further into debt just to keep purchasing the things that we have to have? Your home insurance, your rent, your mortgage payment. Look at your fuel costs, your insurance bills for home and auto. It goes on, and it's not going to stop until there's some sort of pullback in the lending, or until the debt markets get some sort of restrictions put on them. But right now, there are no restrictions. Therefore, banks can keep loaning out money. Now, you could say, well, eventually it's got to stop because people at some point won't be able to repay all this debt. Well, the question is, what will they do though? Will they just cancel the loans like we saw in 2020? I think that's what's going to happen. I think later this year, we're going to see a re-implementation of all these rescue programs that we first saw back in 2020. We're going to see cancellations of rent, foreclosures will be paused, mortgage payments will be paused, student loan payments are going to go back on pause. Of course, they started in October. It's close to half the students now already can't make their payments. So I think that's going to go on repause. That's a word, repause. It is now. So, folks, this is how they make the economy look like it's doing good. And there's plenty of people predicting a crash, deflation, falling prices. I think we might be the only channel that said that's not going to happen. You're likely going to see more inflation and rising cost of living because of the way that they do this. They can create money at the click of a mouse, trillions of dollars. They can pump it into the banks. The banks can loan it out without worrying about who's going to pay it back, because more money can be created in the background at the click of a mouse. Look at this funding program we have going on right now. Now, there's some recent news out here that the central bank was talking about shutting this down in March. Now, they doubled down on what they're saying they're going to do. But take a look at a chart here. Does this look like things are okay? This is the Bank Term Funding Program. This is what started back in March of 2023 when we saw a string of bank failures. Look at how this goes up, 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 and away into the stratosphere. And this is just recently. It's going to keep going. Do you really think they're going to just be able to shut this off? Right? If you would have saw, or if we would have witnessed this borrowing or this funding for the banks go up and then drop back down, then maybe you can make the case that, okay, we'll be able to pull this away from the banks and everything will be fine. But no, we're seeing just the opposite. We're seeing a steady increase, and now almost to the right edge here, you see a parabolic rise in the amount of funding needed to keep these banks operational. And so many people say, well, something has to give. People can't keep up with this high cost of living forever. Well, of course, things are changing. Now look at the record drop in people's 401k balances because they're having to pull so much out of their retirement accounts just to continue to get by. Also, people have to borrow more money. We also see delinquencies rising. So things are bubbling up in the background. Things are reaching a boil point, but you're not going to see it if you just look at these mainstream numbers that make it seem like everything's okay and that there's no problem, and how everybody's surprised at how resilient the economy is. And it's not going to stop. I think next quarter is going to be even a better number because they're just going to create more money. Now, some people say no, they're pulling back. The money supply is shrinking. If the money supply is actually shrinking, then why do we keep going further and further and further? And we're talking about the national debt. That is money that's created, aka borrowed, right? So borrowed money is money that's created. They're just creating it digitally. It's not in a real physical, tangible form, and there's no limit to the amount they can do. So of course they can keep this going, but then you're going to see the cost of living continue to go up. Now there will be some areas where you'll see falling prices. Look at the cost of Teslas, down over 40%. I think we reported on that just a few episodes ago. Some other things in the grocery store coming down a little bit. We've talked about all these things, but the bottom line is, this number, this GDP number for the fourth quarter, really no shock, no surprise, even though that's the way it's being reported. Also, this growth, as they're calling it, was assisted by a record number of government jobs being created. Nearly 25% of the jobs created in the last month, on last month's report, were government jobs. So, of course, that's what you can do. You can keep the economy looking good by borrowing more money, going further into debt. That's why we've always said here for years that the national debt's never going to be paid off. It's just going to keep going higher and higher and higher. But there's people telling me I'm wrong. People saying, no, we're going to pay down the national debt. All we have to do is cut spending. Folks, anybody telling you that they're out of their mind. They're not just wrong, they're out of their mind. People telling you that we can pay off the national debt by cutting spending. And sure, you're going to see the politicians go out there and make those promises. And, there's people running now for office that are saying, oh, yeah, we're going to cut spending. You really think that you could cut spending in this environment where you have to have all this debt created just to keep the economy not just looking good, just to keep the economy running in general? You have to have all this debt in the background being accumulated. It's not going to stop. So anyone telling you that we're going to pay off the debt or we're going to cut spending, as soon as you cut spending, then this whole facade, this whole illusion of economic growth collapses. And of course, no politician wants that to happen on their watch. Look at the president from 2016 to 2020 pressuring the central bank to keep rates low. Remember all the tweets saying that we need to drop rates because they all know that lower rates and more money creation, more spending, more borrowed money makes the economy look good. And they're trying to prevent a collapse, right? And again, nobody wants this to happen on their watch. All right, let's get into some other news here. Most of you know this, but there's some new people here. I just have to remind everybody from time to time on how this whole thing is kept operational, kept running. Another silly headline: America shocks economists again with 3.3% fourth quarter GDP growth as soft landing looms nearer. Folks, nobody here is shocked. I'm not shocked. You're not shocked because you know how the game is played. You had all these people taking out these buy now, pay later loans. Of course, the bank's still loaning out money, even though they're insolvent. And technically, the banks don't have the money they're loaning out because it's all digital. It's all digits on a screen created at the click of a mouse to infinity. So, of course, they could keep this going for a long, long, long time. My question is, though, why are there so many people out there predicting deflation, predicting a crash, or predicting a recession when this is so obviously manipulated? Please let me know what you think down in comments. How are people getting this so wrong? Why are we one of the only channels that have gotten it right for years here? It's pretty interesting. It hasn't made my channel very popular, Sometimes being right's not a popular thing. I would have a hard time sleeping at night if I came out here and told you, you know, the wrong thing. If I told you that we're going to see a collapse, that the cost of living is going to come down, you know, save all your dollars because home prices are going to fall in half. I've covered the topic here. So if you look at my video titles, you'll see topics that are discussed in the video. I just had one a few days ago saying the U.S. housing bubble is going to bust. And the reason we called it that is because there was a survey that we talked about in that video saying that over 40% of people predicted that there was going to be a house price crash here in the United States in 2024. So the title of the video was The Crash in the Housing Market because that's what the topic was. That's what people were talking about. That's not what I'm saying is going to happen. I think prices are going to continue to go up. Um, you know, just like the planners, just like the central planners want. They want prices to go up. They want people under a loan for life. That's more interest paid to the bank and it's more controlled by the banks. Do you think they want you having a low cost of living and having you paying off all your debt, living debt free? If you think that, then you might be living in fantasy land, right? Maybe you're on Fantasy Island with the little guy with the plane, the plane. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up. Sorry, a little bit of a shorter one today, but got to run out of here. Had to put my headphones on because there's a dryer running back there. Hope you guys heard me okay. Thanks, everybody. Let me know what you think down in comments about this shock number and why are we one of the only channels that continue to get this right. Please let me know. Thanks, everybody. Keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.